Hi, welcome to my kitchen. Are you looking for something really impressive to make? Something simple to make? Something delicious? And something that includes seafood? Well, I've got the dish for you today. Garithes me feta. Shrimp and feta. Just a reminder, today's recipe and all the recipes we've used on this show so far can be found on our website, Tweeton.com. Be sure to look us up. You'll find our recipes. You'll find links to other Greek sites that'll give you some insight into the Greek culture. And you'll find a way to email me, and I would love to hear from you. Garithes me feta, shrimp with feta baked in a casserole, is really simple to make. Of course, the one ingredient you have to have is shrimp. Now, you can use 1.5 to 2 pounds of raw, shelled, deveined shrimp. And you can see these are still intact with the shell and the vein. So I'm going to be doing a little work on these. However, if you are not in the mood to get rid of the shells, get rid of the veins, and all that kind of stuff, you can actually use pre-cooked shrimp. And that's what I've got here. 1.5 to 2 pounds of pre-cooked shrimp, and the work has already been done for you. You can leave the tail on, and that makes for a kind of dramatic presentation. Or if you want, just remove the tail. It doesn't matter. Now, in addition to the shrimp, you need some lemon, the juice of half a lemon, and some lemon for garnish. You need some olive oil, a good quality extra virgin olive oil. To brighten things up, you need about a 1/2 cup of fresh chopped parsley, at least a 1/2 cup. For flavor, you need 1 onion, finely chopped. You need a couple cloves of garlic. You need some tomatoes. Now you can use 1 pound of fresh tomatoes and peel them and chop them up yourselves, or you can go the easy route. That's what I'm doing today. Just a nice large can of already diced tomatoes. You need about anywhere from a 1/4 to a 1/3 cup of white wine. This is optional, but it does add a delicious flavor. And of course, to top it all off, anywhere from 4 to 6 ounces of crumbled feta cheese. These are not complex ingredients, but when you put them together, they make a delicious, delicious shrimp casserole dish. And later on, I'll be telling you how you can make a spectacular presentation where you can really impress your dinner guests. As with so many Greek main dishes, this dish starts with 1 chopped onion. And that's what I'm going to do right now. And I want to finely chop it. Well, I'm all done with my onions, and I'm just going to put them in my pot here. And I'm ready to start cooking them. I'm going to add just about 2 tablespoons of olive oil to my saucepan and start sauteing the onions. I want them to get translucent. I want them to cook, mainly because although this is full casserole is going to be baked, it's going to be baked for such a short time. I don't want to run the risk of anybody biting into a piece of raw onion. So I really want to make sure these onions are cooked all the way through. And for this, I'm going to put the cover on so that they really are cooked. While the onions are cooking, I'm going to do the rest of the chopping. So that means garlic and parsley. I need 2 cloves of garlic. And I'm doing all this work on the sauce because I want to get it ready before I start doing anything with the shrimp. The sauce can get cooked and it can just kind of stand around for a while, but the shrimp I don't want to really get started on until I'm close to the end of the whole thing. So give it a good pound to loosen the skin. Okay, here goes finely chopped garlic. And if you wanted to, you could actually put this through the garlic press to make sure it was very, very finely chopped. Again, what you want to avoid is just big, big chunks of anything. And you want to avoid any chunks of raw garlic. Just a little extra chopping. Okay, that's good enough. I'm going to set this aside and give my onions a stir. Oh, they're starting to cook nicely. I'm just going to give them a stir and put the cover back on and let them continue cooking. Now I'm going to work on the parsley. Just removing the thick stalks, stems, and I want at least a half cup chopped. I don't want less, but certainly more is not going to hurt. As I've said before on other shows, Greeks love parsley. They like it in their cooked foods. They don't just, stick the sprig on the side of the dish and that's the end of it. They like to put parsley in their foods. And this is one of those occasions where you're using parsley as a flavoring. It adds some color, that's true, but it's also a flavoring ingredient. And a little bit more than a half cup is not going to hurt a thing. I'm ready to chop my parsley. And this is one case where it really doesn't matter how finely you chop it. It is a flavoring ingredient. It's one of the vegetables being added. It adds a pretty color. So it does need to be chopped, but it doesn't really need to be finely chopped. A rough chop would be fine. Add a little character to the sauce. Okay, I think I'm done here. I need help. Good for something. To the pot, I want to add my parsley and garlic. I'm going to also add my large can of diced tomatoes with the juice. Now remember, this is what you would use if you weren't in the mood to peel and dice fresh tomatoes. And to all this, I'm going to add anywhere from 1/4 of a cup to 1/3 of a cup of dry white wine. Now this is optional. It's not necessary. You can just leave it out, but it does add a nice flavor to the sauce. Now this sauce has to cook. It's way, way too thin right now. So I want to cook it down for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. I want to get it a little thicker. The problem with cooking down any sauce that has tomato in it, that it'll bubble and start splattering all over the place. But I do want to cook it down. So I'm going to use the best of both worlds. I'm going to use my cover, my pan cover, to kind of keep the sauce in check, but I'm going to just lay it on askew so that a lot more of the steam can escape and this sauce will cook and thicken. My sauce is cooking nicely. Now comes the fun part, dealing with these babies, shrimp. Now, sometimes you can find them raw and a lot of the work has already been done for you. They've been shelled, they've been deveined, and all you need to do is cook them. But always remember, the more work that's done on the shrimp, the more expensive they will be. You can also use cooked shrimp, and this is great if you're in a hurry. Say you are having a dinner party. You want to impress people, but you don't want to spend the entire afternoon getting rid of shrimp shells. Well, this is the way to go. But today we're going to have loads and loads of fun getting the shells, the little legs, the veins out of this pile of shrimp. Doesn't that sound like fun? I'm ready for the thrill of a lifetime. I'm going to take care of 2 pounds of raw shrimp here. Now, before I even get started, I want to get myself all set up. This is what I've got. I've got a bowl here with water, because sometimes when you're deveining and getting rid of things, you actually need water to help you get rid of the gunk from a shrimp. I've got the colander where I'm going to put the defrocked shrimp, and I've got a bowl where I'm going to place the little eggs and the little shells. Now here's one thing I could do with all the shells that I take off. I could save them, wrap them up carefully, put them in the freezer, and then when I'm ready to make fish soup, I could actually make a broth out of the shells. What other tools do you need? Well, you need a sharp little knife that will help you with deveining. You can buy actual instruments that are shrimp deveining tools, but a little sharp knife does just as well. You might also need kitchen shears, just in case you run into a really stubborn shell. But that's it. And of course you need your thumbs and your fingers. So here we go. All I like to do is just start breaking in right here around where the little feet are and tear the shell off. And I'm going to do this until I get just to the end of the feet. But the tail, I'm going to leave the tail on because I think it makes for a pretty presentation. So that's 1 shrimp down and 80 to go. Now the deveining, let me get rid of that little leg. Deveining, you take your sharp knife, there's a little brown thing there. That's probably the vein that I'm looking for. So I want to just cut and remove that vein. It's not very dirty, but there's the vein. This is the thing that I want to remove. And then just pull it out and discard it. Now just because you think you've paid for having all the work done doesn't mean you don't have to check these shrimp. This is a cooked shrimp, supposedly peeled, well yes, that was done, and deveined. But if you look carefully, you'll see there's some of that brownish vein here. So even with something that's supposedly clean, that you've paid for that extra labor, you will have to go back and check. In this case, this shrimp's got to have the vein removed. Almost done. I got tired. I had to sit down. Here I am, my last 2 shrimp. So this would be 86. Here's my pile of shells. one vein to come out. And here's my pile of ready to cook shrimp. And this is the last one. Yahoo! This may not be everybody's idea of a fun afternoon or a fun morning. And if it's not, just go with the cooked. I'm done. I'm done with the hard work. But I have to clean up. And this was raw shrimp, raw meat, raw chicken, anything like that. You really have to clean up and clean up carefully. So I'm going to wash everything down with hot sudsy water. And then just for extra measure, I'm going to use a bleach spray. Make sure I kill any little germs. I don't want anything traveling anywhere else in my kitchen. So give me a few minutes. I've got to clean up. Took me a few minutes, but I got everything cleaned up. Washed everything down with soap and water. Then I sprayed it with this special bottle I keep in the kitchen. It's a bleach solution. And finally, after everything was done and I'd wiped everything down, I soaped this up, rinsed it, stuck it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes to kill all the germs. So I'm ready to move on. One last step before I start cooking the shrimp. I've got them shelled, I've deveined them, but I want to rinse them under cold running water, mainly because I want to make sure I don't have any little shrimp legs or bits of shell or bits of veins hanging onto the shrimp bodies. So I'm going to rinse them off and then dry them on about 4 paper towels here. And if I find anything strange, funny, unappetizing, I'll toss it. I'm all done. Now I need to just clean the sink and clean my colander before I go on to cooking the shrimp. Remember the sauce? While I was fussing with the shrimp, the sauce was cooking. It cooked about, say 25 to 30 minutes. And it's quite thick now. You can see it. It's thick. It's lost a lot of the water. And it's just a wonderful melange of onions, garlic, parsley, tomato, with that hint of wine. It's perfect, and I'm just going to turn it off the heat and set it aside. My shrimp have been draining on these paper towels, and I just want to pat it down on the top with additional paper towels because I'd like them to be as dry as possible when I go to saute them. A couple thoughts about shrimp. If you overcook shrimp, they will turn rubbery. And boy, do I have a funny story to tell about rubbery shrimp. When I was newly married, I went back with my husband to visit his family in Iowa. And this was many years ago, 25 years ago. We went out to dinner at a really lovely restaurant. And for some reason, I didn't order beef, I didn't order pork, I ordered shrimp. That was a stupid thing to do back then. In the Midwest, order seafood. But yes, I went ahead and did it, and when I got my shrimp, they were as tough and rubbery as a playground ball, practically inedible. Now, I don't want you to make this same mistake. When dealing with shrimp, you've got to cook them just until done. If you overcook them, they'll be horrible, and all your hard work will have been wasted. So the first thing, we're going to saute these shrimp. First thing you need to do is get your pan hot. So about medium high, and have the patience to wait until your pan is hot. Don't try to rush this. Yep, this pan is hot. Now, I want to pour in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Let's say that's 1. Let's pretend that's 2. Another bit of patience. This olive oil has got to heat up. So wait a few moments until the oil is hot. Now when I finally get this shrimp into the pan, it's going to cook, saute for just 1 minute. Yeah, just 1 minute. The reason I want to do that is because I do want the shrimp cooked, but I don't want them overcooked. They're going to be baked. If I cook them a lot in the saute pan and then bake them, I'm going to end up with rubber ball shrimp. The pan's hot, oil's hot, and it's time for the shrimp. And remember, just 1 minute of a quick saute, lots of stirring. And they turn pink almost immediately when they hit the hot oil and the hot pan surface. Just a quick saute. Even if you think some of them aren't quite done, that's all right, because they will be baked, they will get completely cooked. And I want them just barely cooked. As long as every shrimp has a little bit of color, that's all I'm looking for. They will cook completely in the baking. Okay, I think this is good enough. And I'm going to take it off the heat. Once I take the shrimp off the heat, I want to get them into a separate bowl. And the reason for this is simple. If they stay in the pan, well, the pan is still hot. They'll still cook. So I want to get them out of the hot pan and into a separate bowl. I want the juice of half a lemon, and I want to add it to the shrimp. So I'm going to kind of roll the lemon a bit. Get some of the juice ready to come out. Use my handy dandy thing here and get the juice out. And of course I want to remove the few seeds. Add the lemon juice to the shrimp and toss it. If you were using the pre-cooked shrimp, you shouldn't saute them. They're already cooked. You don't need to saute them. If you do that, you would end up overcooking them. But what you should do is put them in a bowl and toss them with the juice of half a lemon and add 1 tablespoon olive oil. Toss that up. And then you would get a very close approximation to this. Before I put this whole thing together, I do want to taste the sauce and see if I need any salt or pepper. I haven't added salt just because there's salt in the canned tomato products. Actually, it tastes pretty good to me. I'll add just a little. Because this is going to have feta, I do not want to over salt anything. But pepper tastes good. And as far as I know, no studies have linked overuse of pepper to any kind of physical problems. Okay, now we got our sauce. You know what else would work with this recipe if you didn't want to deal with shrimp or you're serving somebody who's allergic to shellfish? You could use chicken breast tenders or the chicken breast strips that are cut up for fajitas. That would work just fine. And you want to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you don't overcook the raw chicken breast when you're sauteing it. Now comes the really fun part. If you're serving this for your family, well, get yourself a nice big casserole. If you want to serve this for guests and make a really fun presentation, try individual baking dishes, little ramekins like this, or you know what else would be even more spectacular? Those wonderful scallop dishes. That would be so much fun, and people would just look at what you've done and they'd rave, not realizing that really this is pretty simple to put together. The first thing you want to do is just lightly oil the bottom of your ramekin, your baking dish, or your scallop shell. You need to put a nice layer of sauce on the bottom. And this looks especially nice in a little ramekin like this. And I'm going to pile, about 10 in here. And then these will go into this. And with any of the juices that have accumulated. That's just fine. And what I want to do now is just a nice little topping of sauce on the top. And scrape off all of that sauce because you don't want to miss any of it. It does taste really good. And the final step, sprinkle with feta cheese, crumbled feta cheese. You want anywhere from 4 to 6 ounces. And then see what I can get on here. And this, the feta, will add just a wonderful dimension. It's salty, it's tangy. The casserole goes into a 450-degree oven for just 15 minutes. Again, if you overcook it, you're going to end up with rubber shrimp. So 15 minutes only. Well, both casseroles are done. Garithes with feta. Really delicious, really simple, tasty. Try it sometime. I'm sure you'll like it. Will you stop playing with your food?